the same thing. You have to be willing to start the process of saying, okay, this is where I'm coming from, where are you coming from? And we're not even at that point yet. We're still sort of talking past each other. So I think the things your question brings up are the things that we're here to try and solve and to have that conversation. This is what's important to us. China has things that are important to them. And like I said, I don't presume that there's some, okay, snap our fingers and we'll automatically resolve this. But I know how this process starts. And I have seen, as the diplomats here and my colleagues have seen as well, many things that seemed intractable and impossible, that once you actually started talking from the standpoint of let's try and resolve this, it is unbelievable what you can accomplish when you do that. And I think that's what China and the U.S. needs to do, because you pointed out some of the differences. We need to, I guess the joke is not necessarily get on the same page, but at least get in the same book as a starting point.
Janice Mackey-Frayer from NBC.
Sure, go ahead.
One thing to that. You mentioned the president's call with President Xi. They had a great call. They're looking forward to getting together, as President Trump said, potentially in the near future, but certainly next year early. These topics you bring up are actively being negotiated now. We just got back from Madrid, and you see the readout on that. We talked to Minister He Lefeng this week about that. So there's ongoing conversation. I would say that the relationship between President Xi and President Trump is actually very good and very encouraging right now.
Janice Mackey-Frayer from NBC.
Janice Mackey-Frayer from NBC. When you talk about this level of communication and opening up these lines of communication, what is it that you're looking for? Is it to return to a level of communication between the two sides that existed in the past, or are you looking to open up new and different channels of communication? Given the experience that you bring to this congressional visit, was there a time when things were better, or is this what you would say a critical stage, even crisis?
Yeah, no, two things. One, I think it's going to be new and different because both China and the U.S. are entirely different in entirely different places now than they were even a decade ago, much less 20, 30, 40 years ago. And yeah, I mean, the relationships have been in different places. I'm not a historian about all of that. I know in the past it has been better, but it's going to be new. It's going to be different because our two countries are in an entirely different place. And then we have to look at sort of what the broad issues are that we're trying to resolve. Certainly the economic issues are going to be important. The trade imbalances, our different perceptions of that. Our two militaries, what are our goals in the world? How do we get along? And then some of the conflicts in the world. How can we work together, on, conflict in the Middle East, the conflict that continues between Russia and Ukraine, the challenges we have with North Korea. So I would say it's going to be in a different place than it was in the past, and that is where we need to go. Yes.
Brian from FT.
Hi, from the FT. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us. On the TikTok deal, has it become clear if ByteDance will continue to have any role in maintaining or updating the new TikTok US algorithm? And what would be your view if ByteDance does continue to be involved in any way?
Okay. It has not become clear to me. I can't speak for others. Others who are bigger experts on that and where it's at. My understanding is I don't think that has been 100% resolved. I would say, and I think I would speak for the United States Congress and for the government, we would have concerns. The concern is basically we want to make sure that there is privacy and security, that it's not in jeopardy. How they resolve that, frankly, goes over my head, both technologically and in terms of knowledge in the negotiations. I'm not privy to those negotiations, but it is an important issue without question.
Thank you. Colin Murphy from Bloomberg.
Thank you. Just to follow up on that, in terms of the TikTok deal, the White House is saying that it's a done deal. In your interactions with the Chinese counterparts, did you have the same impression that the Chinese also understand this is a done deal? What are the next steps for finalizing this deal, both in the U.S. and in China, in your view? And just to add on the rare earths, did you get any sort of assurances from the Chinese side that the process is going smoothly or will continue to go smoothly? I ask because as recently as last week we had European companies saying that they are still facing challenges in securing supply of rare earths from the Chinese side? Thank you.
On that last question, I don't think we resolved the rare earth question. I think that still needs to be worked on, without question. I think there are still challenges. I would not personally characterize how the Chinese officials felt about the Tic-Tac deal. I would leave that to them. We discussed it, but not in great detail. We discussed it more along the lines of this needs to be resolved. So I can't give you any insights as to how the Chinese officials view it.
I think we have time for two more questions. Let's start with Lori from Reuters.
Given that there have been
Coming at you from the other side.
Thanks. Given that there have been some high-profile visits by the U.S. House to Taiwan in recent years, has China asked that the U.S. refrain from more of such visits to Taiwan in future? And if so, what was your approach to China's requests? And could you give more details on what you discussed regards Taiwan militarily as well?
Yeah, they didn't ask us about that. That issue did not come up.
And last question, Yoko from Wall Street Journal.
Hi, Yoko Kubota with the Wall Street Journal. Wanted to ask if you could elaborate some more on the military-related discussions. Beijing has been quite assertive when it comes to showing off its military power these days. The parade was a good example. What messages did you get from the Chinese side? You spoke with the defense minister. And just one more question. We have two lawmakers representing the state of Washington. I was wondering if Boeing, aircraft came up in the discussions during your meetings as well. Thank you.
Yeah, on the Boeing question, I don't remember specifically. I know it came up as a discussion. It's been a while since Boeing airplanes have been sold here in China. We'd like to get that deal done. And I think that's all across the United States, not just those of us from the state of Washington. It's good company, good product. Hope to get back to them selling airplanes to China. And sorry, remind me what the first question was again. Oh, yeah, defense. Yeah, I mean, it's basically, China, I think their perspective is the same perspective that most countries have, which is they want their military to be strong enough to defend their interests, which, is logical and makes perfect sense. What I think we want to get to the point is where China understands that now they are such a large military, they need to have more conversations with the other large militaries in the world for basic deconfliction. I mean, we've seen this. With our ships, our planes, their ships, their planes coming entirely too close to one another. We need to have a better conversation about deconflicting those things. And also capabilities. There's such a rapid change in technology in terms of what AI and drone warfare and cyber and space. It is moving so rapidly and the innovation is happening so quickly. The risk of a misunderstanding of capabilities on one side or the other is great. And I think there needs to be communication about that. You can just take nuclear weapons as an example. At the height of the Cold War, we had regular conversations, regular treaties with the Soviet Union. I think that was very, very important. One of the things we really want to encourage the Chinese, their position is you're so much more powerful than we are. There's no point in talking about it at this point. Yeah, I think when you're getting up into the hundreds, close to 1,000 on nuclear weapons, it's time to start having a conversation about it to make sure that we understand each other and we don't stumble in to any sort of conflict. So I hope we can ramp up that dialogue so that level of understanding can lead to cooperation. And I just want to close sort of where I started. I think where we want to get is we want to get to the place where China and the U.S. are working together to make the world a better place. Yes, there will be competition, but as two great powers that really don't have a fundamental, intractable conflict, we ought to be able to work together on some of these problems that are in both of our countries' interests, but also in the interests of the world.
Thank you, everybody. That's what we have time for today.
Let me add one thing on the Boeing issue, if I might, Yoko. I personally had the privilege of being able to visit with them last week in Tianjin in their factory. And this is a great story of cooperation between the United States and China, of a commercial operation where they're here in China making products to be sold on products that will be sold in China. This is a huge order, and it's very important to the president. It's very important to Boeing. I think it's very important to China. And I think that we're in the last days of that, or weeks of that negotiation, and we're hopeful that that will turn out to be the case. Let me just say one more thing. I want to be sure to tell you guys how grateful we are for the audiences that we've had this week. Premier Lee was very gracious with his time. Minister Dong Jun was as well. And then we had an active and ongoing trade conversation with Minister He Lifeng yesterday. So these are productive conversations, but I also want to commend these members of the House of Representatives. This is not an easy thing for them to do. They will take some political hits potentially back home. But I can tell you that from our conversations, they're not soft on China. They're not hard on China. They want peace and stability, which is what China is asking for and what we're asking for. So I commend them on this trip and commit that there will be many more of these trips to come. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.